We were at the nick of time.
We were in the nick of time. Nice.
That was
Last thing. Well,
true.
guess what? Now we are live for the eLearning community office hours. Coming to you live. I'm Laddick. This is Chris. We've been here for a few weeks now. Can you believe I just got to start with saying this is as cliche as it is. Can you believe it's already February 2nd? Yikes.
Uh,
One
I
of the 12 months of 2022 are already gone. We're 1/12 done with 2022 already. I'd like to welcome everybody who has come to join us. We're here for our office hours, which is an informal chat between Chris and I and whoever else wants to join us about all things e-learning. We usually come with some topics to talk about, which we did today. We have our podcast. We have some events that are coming up, a bunch of other good stuff out there. We work for a company called OpenLMS. And we're excited to talk about what we're doing in our community. We're excited to talk about like the events that we're having, this eLearn Success Summit, which you can't see right now, but you'll hear about it several
can
times
see
over here.
here.
I mean, not only is the eLearning Success Summit, not only done with the month of January, but the first session of 4 sessions for the Success series is coming up on the 23rd, which is just 21 days away. We already have almost 500 people that are registered for this thing. And that's growing pretty rapidly on a day-to-day basis. Here's one of the reasons you see that right there on your screen. There, it's a free ticket, right? You can't go wrong with this. Just get in there, come join us. We have our entire lineup on the over at eLearnSuccessSeries.com. Michelle Ockers, Dr. Jane Bozarth of the Learning Guild. We have Rose Benedicts from Leo Learning. We've got Mark Pari. We've got Hitachi from Priceline. We've got Justin Reiner from Amobi. This is going to be really interesting. As Chris and I were actually earlier today, we were going through the agenda and just sort of looking at another one that we just put up there recently. But we confirmed Natalie Miller of XR Global talking about virtual reality and augmented reality and how she does that in Africa. Across Africa and sort of some definitely low bandwidth context and the kind of results she's getting. She puts this myth about too expensive and too cumbersome to get done. She just puts that to bed, which is going to be really exciting.
Yeah.
And the reason why, go ahead. Yeah, the reason why.
We have an episode with Natalie Miller on the podcast, so welcome to check it out as well.
Also with Hitachi. So definitely check that one out as well. But the reason why tickets are free is because we've got really cool sponsors, right? Not only do we work with OpenLMS, but we, one of our key partners, IntelliBoard, is a gold partner this year. Open Sesame is also sponsoring us, and our media partner this year is eLearn, our eLearn magazine, which we're also kind of a part of, but still, that's been going on for quite some time. His own Manuel and his team over there. So enough promo about eLearn magazine. If you are here listening to us live right now, we'd love to hear from you, even if it's just to say hello. Tell us where you're joining in from. Tell us, what you do in e-learning. Tell us, what are your current challenges? What are the things that you're facing now that, especially across higher ed, a lot of the universities are now back in session. Many of them are hybrid. Many of them are online. Some of them are back fully at 100% in person. If you're in the corporate space, if you are an L&D professional that, serves a different community than higher ed, we'd love to hear about that as well. Just throw it in the chat. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you're on LinkedIn, if you are on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, put a comment in there and we'll go from there. Chris, where do you want to take us first today?
I have a couple of announcements, parochial announcements. They call them in my country.
What are they called? What?
Parochial, like from the church, like.
Parochial announcements. Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, because I was actually with my aunt in church
Nice.
a few weeks ago, like after a million years, and I didn't notice that it's like right before he gives like the blessing before you can go. He starts mentioning about things that are happening in the community, projects and so on. And I didn't remember that you do that like before you say like the final prayer of the mass. Like it was like right in the middle of it.
Like if you say the final prayer, everybody gets up and goes, man. You got to get your sales pitch in before you get the final. Yeah.
So So before people go, I want to mention that OpenLMS Academy has a pretty consistent quality of content for Moodle and not Moodle practitioners. This one is very general, build a better course, for example. If you are a client of OpenLMS, you get some discounts. And I think there are some ways in which you can exchange like some support hours or something like that for the course.
Oh.
So you don't really have to pay. And this is what's the word? Sorry.
The agenda, the timeline.
Led by Amy, which is
Tessitor.
Tessitor, yeah, just an outstanding educator. And I think it focuses on OpenLMS and on H5P.
They have there's a second course about doing H5P better, which is in 4 weeks from now. So this one right now, Build a Better Course, is on how do you make a more engaging course and whatnot, for sure. But it starts in 2 weeks. And right now it's February 2nd as we're recording this. So now's the time to pop over and get signed up for that. So that.
Yeah, I mean, we're not big on promoting, but this one seems like really good quality, and it's very fitting to our February theme of instructional design and so on. 100%. We have some community questions, so that's also an invitation. If you want to ask us something live, I mean, if you're watching this after we recorded, but you want us to record it live, our answer, you can post it in the community as well. And if you have some experience that you can exchange, you can let us know now, or you can join to this post, because this one in particular is about Microsoft Teams and the plugin for Moodle and from OpenLMS systems, which I don't think anybody has a real good experience with it. So it would be good. This one in particular is wondering if it's possible, if you create a room inside Moodle, how can you automatically get a calendar meeting into your Microsoft Outlook calendar? We should be like a straightforward proposition, but I don't think it's currently available. So another thing is that if we see a lot of people having these issues, we can try to explore like a broader solution, maybe for upcoming versions of the systems and so on.
Wonderful.
Related to that, we have the 2020 OpenLMS release schedule, which sort of mirrors the Moodle LMS schedule. As many of you know, or if you don't know, Moodle is going to have like a brand new launch. It's expected to come maybe in March. It's been delayed a couple times, which is Moodle 4.0. They did a really heavy work on UX research, redesign, and I guess it's kind of justified that it's been so delayed because they really want to blow
our minds.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Finally, our content creation course, our content creation team, they have a weekly online learning toolbox, which means that every Friday, well, once a week, they release a full course ready for you to bring it into your own Moodle site and just use it to teach it. So the theme of this week is verbal communication skills. I know we're always talking about soft skills. They always come back to haunt us.
Absolutely.
So very well recommended, completely free. So
Fantastic.
check it out. All of that is happening on the community.
Before we dive in there, I want to give a shout out to Douglas Edwards, who threw a comment over in LinkedIn there. He works for Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, he says, and he says that we seem to be at the crossroads between e-learning and microlearning. People seem to be tired of the long e-learning courses with text-heavy screens. We're finding better luck with short how-to videos, brief job aids, and now augmented reality. Of course, not in all cases. First of all, thanks so much for throwing that in the comments there. Really super cool to hear from you, Douglas. I'm interested in obviously we're not having I don't know if we'll have this dialogue in real time, but maybe we should. why there would be a juxtaposition, or why are we putting microlearning and e-learning on two sides of it as if they're different things? Like, it seems to me like microlearning is a part of e-learning, or it's one way to deliver of these many different ways to deliver learning, through an online channel and those kinds of things. And so I would say as well, and as a matter of fact, I'm not going to spoil the whole thing, but I actually spoke with another individual recently this week who's excited to either come on the show here or be a speaker at one of our events in the very near future, who's talking about, in his company, they don't even use an LMS. They basically have looked at it from an ecosystem perspective. That's what he calls it. And he's excited to kind of talk about how they really have moved away from that. So that's incorporating, pieces like microlearning and those kinds of things. Microlearning is absolutely not only the flavor of the year, it's a huge piece. People are, and not only the flavor of the year, but it resonates with the, Instagram Reels, TikTok universe that we have in, going on right now. And I was actually, funny enough, I was talking with my wife about this morning in her organization, how they need to think about doing that a little better. So this is a really valid conversation, and I can see that, especially, with people having, we have more flexibility than ever, we have more agility than ever, those kinds of things, but we also seem to have less time than ever. This is not an unusual problem. This is something that's been going on for a long time. But how do you find those moments? For example, I was speaking with a open enrollment client and a member of the community recently, and she was explaining that the community she serves, the group of people who come to her learning universe, are in the movie profession, right? They're in the movie and film profession, right? And so she said, look, these people work really, really long hours, and they're usually kind of unusual hours, but you can work like 14, 18 hours a day. And they don't have a whole lot of time to just sort of pop in and do a long course like Douglas is talking about here. And so they're really interested in learning or discovering unique strategies for delivering just-in-time learning, for delivering learning, in these nice in these nice bite sizes that we're calling microlearning. So this is a real thing. And Douglas, I'd love to hear about how Children's Hospital is implementing microlearning. That'd be great. I see that you're saying that's still the main issue of tracking training, especially when it comes to compliance.
Yeah. Kind of what I was asking you, like if people in an organization are always like on learning, how can we show evidence that that's actually happening? And yeah, Douglas says that microlearning doesn't necessarily make it easy to allow tracking. Although I would say that the fact that it's not easy now doesn't mean it's not going to be easy in the future, because actually when you are splitting a lesson into smaller parts, you are going to have more data points. I mean, or you have that potential. It all depends on how systems and platforms sort of come around this issue, the issue of tracking and compliance with microlearning. But I guess going back to the original question, what I wondered if
Can I jump in there? Can I jump in there for a second, though? Let's explore that for just a second. Douglas, I'm just wondering, have you tried? And let's just get into the dirt here. Have you, since we're kind of been able to seem to still be online, have you tried XAPI and like a learning record store rather than using an LMS? Because XAPI, it would seem, would be able to connect into most any microlearning platform. I don't know which one you're using, or how you're trying to do some microlearning, but because XAPI can actually attach itself or listen for the those moments, did they click here, or was that video watched, or how much of that video was watched? It can be customized in so many different ways. Microlearning should be able to be tracked just as effectively, if not better, than inside a learning management system. What do you think, Chris? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, well, I'm actually curious, like what microlearning specific platforms are there? I know we could like whip up a microlearning course on Moodle. but there's others. And it's always on my mind, the interview with Kate Udalova from Seven Taps,
Yeah.
which I think is like the best case that I've seen of a micro learning platform, which at the same time she says, I don't mean to be an LMS. I want to be something like just very straightforward. And which it makes sense, but it leaves questions like Douglas of how about compliance? How about um, traceability in enterprise system and so on? So
Mhm.
it's interesting. It's good to have that debate. But one question that I did have is, maybe another way to reframe Douglas' original question is, are we inevitably, is all e-learning inevitably uh, evolving towards micro-learning, like carcinization?
I mean, I think that I think there's a clear case that that is not true, right? I think that, I think micro learning has always been with us, right? It's just been recognized, and it's a flavor of the year. This is my opinion, of course, obviously. But, just look at masterclass.com, right? Look at any, podcast of any success right now that is in long form, like hardcore history, where literally, hundreds of thousands, not millions of people will listen to a 4-hour episode, of hardcore history, or a Sam Harris episode or something like that, where we're talking 2-3 hours of talking. I think it's really, what learning are you trying to do? Which learners are you trying to address? And are we what, and in what moment are you trying to catch them? Like in Douglas's case, it sounds like this is compliance training, so it's probably not at the top of anyone's priority list, if not, if anything. And so how do we deliver compliance training to a workforce that probably, you have to do it, it's got to be there, but isn't necessarily something that people are super excited about? Whereas if you're offering people something that they're super passionate about, home improvement, cooking, child raising, motorcycle racing, Formula One, they will be there for hours, right? As a, in a learning moment, right? I think about, just think about all of the DIY things that are on Netflix, on what used to be on public television in the United States, or these kinds of things. People will happily give their times for what they're passionate about. That's my counter argument.
Okay, well, let me ask you something. Do you think it's kind of inevitable that there is going to be like a micro learning element or a micro learning layer? Like, yeah, you go and you watch your whole session, and universities are not going anywhere, and those have really long lectures that you're going to sit. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to like on the job training, or if we added this sort of cognition trends of space repetition, where you can just remind yourself a couple of topics every so often, there's a place for micro learning, and in some cases you could, I would dare to say that this is kind of a must have, the micro learning elements in your lesson, that it doesn't have to be like the 100%, but has to be there.
Right. And I think you see it here in Douglas's most recent comment, where he's like, they're doing a lot of compliance training, but like software procedures, entering patient records, right? So these are definitely things that you could deliver as micro learning without a problem. But you're not gonna teach anybody how to do surgery, or how to deal with patient bereavement, or leadership skills within sort of a hospital, right? Is in micro learning, right? Those, but what you to your point, Chris, is will there be a micro learning element? I don't see why not, right? I mean, I'm thinking as well, like, especially in today's age of always connected, always on, even in a university setting, as a professor's talking, or as you're learning, you're Googling something maybe that you missed, or maybe there's a little fact that you wanted to get, or you're putting together an assignment, and you need to put together information really quickly. So those quick bursts are always, I think that's just become a part of what our life is, right?
Yeah, I believe.
I think look at this. I think Douglas He first of all, he says, we don't have any surgery e-learning courses. Thank you. Oh, Douglas, I feel you need to dial into where we're at right now. We just need to have a conversation. This is really, that's awesome. But I agree with you right here. It might be more fair to say that people are tired of bad e-learning. And I'm gonna just give you a high five there. In that this is what Chris and I are literally trying to rid the world of, right? Bad e-learning is really, yeah, it's horrible. Which is a great segue. Douglas, thank you so much. That is absolutely, one of the first interactions we've had here on the office hours of any depth. And I really, really appreciate you showing up and putting that on the table. I'd love to know if there's a way or some other piece that we can, help you take a next step there. And so maybe we'll reach out to you on LinkedIn or something like that. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But people are tired of bad e-learning. So let's talk about someone who is also trying to change bad, get rid of bad e-learning, which is Rhonda Beeman. Chris, why don't you, you listened to the podcast the most recently. She's super cool, isn't she?
Yeah, definitely. I was just checking some of YouTube videos of her. She's on a couple of TED Talks and TEDx Talks in the US, but also in places like the Netherlands. And I mean, I wouldn't do much justice to just listening to the episode because she has the vibe, she has the energy. And funnily enough, she's also a coach and a fitness trainer. And I think you can really tell that, like from the way she explains herself. And it made me wonder, like, why aren't teachers picking up more elements of what goes on into a coaching session, in a fitness training session? Like,
or is that just the hallmark? Is that the hallmark of great teaching? Right. I wonder, what's the word I'm looking for? She's also she's not decadent. That's not the word I'm looking for. I'm looking for, she lives outside the box. She's willing to push boundaries. She's willing to kind of, she lives outside that space of, okay, here's the learning outcomes, and we're going to just kind of do this in the step by step and blah blah blah, right? Gosh, what's the word I'm looking for?
But I think one way to round up a lot of the stuff that you two talked is subverting expectations, which you brought up, and that's sort of her. It's kind of her instinct when she sees some audience that is like difficult. She talked about like old bankers, and she wanted to like teach them some course. She didn't mention the subject, but like trying to engage with old bankers who are like forced there. Some are just timing their retirement, and she actually was able to. I was tempted to use in the headline use the word contagious, but given the present circumstances, I think. but she did mention that this energy can be contagious if it's coupled with like genuine care, like because she would also mention that within a week she would learn the names of 400 students in her classes.
Wasn't her bet like she would buy them all pizza or something if she didn't know all their name? I couldn't remember what the exact bet was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
if she fails, she gets pizza for 400 people.
Well, yeah. So yeah. I guess I can't believe that my language is completely failing me. I can't remember this word, but it's that rebel quality, right? And it's not like rebel, like damn the establishment, and get like burn down the government. But it's that rebel quality of, I'm going to just take that extra effort to think about how can we do this in a way that meets our learners where they're at today, and asks them to participate in the learning moment in a way where they're really going to dive in and dig in. Like she talks about, running a podcast as a part of the class. She talks about game shows as a part of the class. And this is, I think a lot of teachers use these things, but she just does it with such panache, with such, energy, and I guess believability. I guess at the end of the day, that's it, right? It doesn't feel like a game because it feels like, no, wait, this is what we're actually doing. This is the learning, you know? It doesn't feel faked, is what the word I'm looking for there. So I really, in the podcast, her energy in that way really just comes out super fantastic.
Yeah, like just I think the what I decided to name it was she's a teacher's teachers. Like she's been through everything. She has this natural quality of what is it like to manage a classroom and to really achieve an outcome, not just be a speaker or a performer just for the sake of it, because she's an educator, very well recognized and awarded and so on.
Yeah, she's got some books out there. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So don't miss that episode.
Hey, yeah, just go over to right now. It's still at lmspulse.com/ELP with the eLearning podcast. So, or eLearn podcast as we're rebranding now, because everything is eLearn now, which is fantastic. But yeah, go over, check out the podcast, or just look up the eLearning podcast on Apple or in Google or wherever else you look, on Stitcher or any other places that you can think of, and happily we will appear. And check out our latest episode, because Rhonda is worth listening to, and I hope that she will either join us for another episode or be on the stage with us at the eLearn Success series here later in the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Or check out the previous episode to this one if you're listening on the podcast. We also have a couple of things I'm kind of excited about, and it's every so often we update our LinkedIn's top 15 e-learning list. So it's basically the people who get the most engagements that are working in instructional design, e-learning, L&D, and so on. I don't know, it's a really cool list. It's pretty long, so I won't list everyone, but I just have to say,
50 people.
I think we're over 50 already. But I don't know, what I found is that most of them are pretty approachable on LinkedIn. If you have, I mean, if you have something valuable to add, or some idea of a possible collaboration that's valuable and fun, I think most of them will give you a response. And well, that's been my experience. I don't think I'm very popular people, and my LinkedIn is not that. And yet I got pretty good rate of reply, like as compared to an email, or I don't know.
That's fantastic. It's great to hear that our colleagues are approachable and willing to talk.
Yeah, so just check out the list. And finally, we have some instructional design picks, just a selection of books. And there's a couple of them. We do have a little bit of a Amazon affiliate link if you want to help us out there. This one is for me like a classic. I think it was the one that got me started into a lot of things for usability, web design, UX, and learning design. So, and it's really makes a lot of sense for people to get started with it.
Awesome.
So yeah, check this list out. And that would be all the preambles.
Our e-learning tech stack, or the design stack, as we're calling the ID stack.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, what I wanted to mention today is something we've been working in, which is the instructional design canvas. So it's been interesting.
Before we do that, I want to remind everybody that Chris and I are actually live right now. You're as you're listening to us, we are live right now on February 2nd at 5:30 Eastern time. If like you're like Douglas and you're listening live, we'd love to hear from you. If you have a challenge, if you have success, if you have an observation about how learning is going in your institution, your company, your school, whatever. Either if you are delivering that learning, if you're creating, if you're designing it, or you're taking it, we'd love to hear that. And we do have lots of students in our community. We have lots of adult learners and whatnot. And even if you're listening to the recording, put your message or put your observation in the comments, because we do hear them afterwards. Sorry about that. That was a reminder to go do something, and I forgot to drop my phone. But if you're listening to the recording, put them in the comments there. We do see those comments. I mean, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook and YouTube all the time, and we respond to them, and we also incorporate those into our next show, or we answer those questions in the community. And then final shout out over here is, go to elearningsuccessseries.com. Our designer session is coming up in just 21 days on February 23rd. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers. All of the tickets are free because of our great sponsors right now, IntelliBoard and Open Sesame. And we'd love to have, you join us and bring your opinions, bring your observations, and come to learn something. So now, with that said, because we are doing the design session, Chris, I bring it over to you to talk us through this design canvas that you have.
Yeah. So for every summit that we do, every session, we used to have a companionship, what marketers call a lead magnet. So it's just another small incentive for people to get a bit more value of the experience. So for this year, we decided to call it the Instructional Design Canvas. And I think what's good about it is that it's sort of been, it's evolved with the conversations that we have with the speakers. So we hope that as you watch the sessions and hopefully you keep this canvas handy, you will see how some of the terms, some of the topics resonate somewhere along this line. And since it's a canvas, much like the business model canvas and so on, the idea is that you sort of fill it out, if possible, as you try to plan a session. So you have sort of an idea of the elements that you need to have a successful, effective design product for e-learning. I wanted to make it very, how to say it, encompassing, but I think that's a fool's errand in a way. There's this joke of XKCD. This is just a web comic. It's very popular, and there's some guy that looks at three standards, in technology, and he says, "Why do we have three standards to support? It doesn't make any sense. Why don't we just create one standard that supports all of the previous standards?" And a lot of people will say, fine. But the result is that you end up having 4 standards to support. So I think that's the mistake, well, quote unquote mistake that I made here. And it's that it's not going to be, it's as encompassing as I thought it can be. But of course, you're going to find other similar tools, like tool sets for you to build your lesson, things that you have to keep in mind and so on. But I'm always happy to compare notes and just hear if this one work, if there's something that doesn't make sense, something missing. I'm always happy to do it. So yeah, the canvas has 5 key elements. So I wanted just to go very quickly through each one of them. Again, they're all very much influenced by the conversations we have internally and with the speakers. So I think the right way to start is with the persona of your learner. So just before you get started, you should know who you're talking to, who you're educating, right? And I know Steven, you are very excited or passionate about the idea of a persona, at least in a community sense, right? So yeah, there are some characteristics that it's important, or it could make sense to keep into account. Maybe all of them are important. Maybe just a couple would be good enough. So just to keep in mind. The second is sort of the storytelling arc. And it's good, again, not every lesson has to be microlearning, not every lesson has to be like storytelling, but I guess it helps to see how you take your students from a place where there is nothing, or there's zero in terms of the subject, either the subject at the time or the larger body of knowledge that you wish to teach. Uh, so the storytelling is a way for you to visualize that path, and it also helps you to see what should be happening at each stage in time with your lesson. Um, I don't want to, I don't want to go through over this. I think I would assume that most of us are sort of aware of sort of the arcs of a story, like beginning, middle, and end, and uh, right. You have to set up a world. You have to list a couple of conflicts. You have to make them. You have to complicate them. So it's not that I have a problem and I have a solution and that's it. That's not almost never the case in real life. And really the resolution, which is the end, where the student is a different person because of what they went through. So that would be the arc.
Storytelling has also been a very powerful theme in several of the podcasts that we've had and several speakers that we've had at the summit in years past as well. So I know I not only resonate with the first one, but I also resonate this one as well. Like, people attach themselves to stories, and that really helps in the education process. So just a small comment.
No, absolutely. And I'm willing to bet that there's a lot of storytelling being mentioned in the session. Next, we have the principles. I actually updated it because of the talk that we had this morning with one of our speakers. I like that word, the imperative.
Imperatives, yeah. Spoiler alert. Yeah, we don't want to give away too much thunder here, but yeah.
But yeah, like principles, like when you are right at the moment of executing, creating the content, what do you have in mind? What do you have to comply? But I don't like the word comply. It's more like I mean, compliance is important, to abide, if that makes sense. Of things that you set out for your own content in a way. I mean, of course, most of us are working on teams within corporations and so on, but I've always thought that should not be a reason for you not to be willing to insert your own voice, in whatever you're doing. So yeah, and all of this, again, you could take one of them, a couple of them. The schools of thought, what we discussed the last session. See, you can check out the past office hours to see what resonated with you there, and see what you can bring into your new lesson. Then we have the tech stack. So just make a list of all the technology that you're going to use, just to keep it in check, to see if it fulfill the purpose, if maybe you're willing to try some other tool that's lighter, more functional, cheaper, and so on. And I thought it was important to add like some thoughts on documentation and like file structures. I don't know, like I see that people tend to struggle with that here and there. So just keep your tech in check.
Keep your tech in check. Nice. All right.
And finally, the analytics. Honestly, there's not here.
My favorite part. Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, hopefully the final version of this canvas, when we share it with all the people who subscribe to the summit, is going to be like a little more comprehensive, without being like overwhelming. But I guess one message that I have right now is just start simple. Since it's the idea is that you create this, and whenever you do another take or another creation process, you sort of take stock of what you did the last time and then try to do it better. So if if this is the first time you use something like that, you may not even have to implement the analytics, or you can just keep it to just one metric, like what is it that you want to track out of it. It brings my mind into the Kirkpatrick pyramid of what to evaluate.
Sure.
But the baseline would be like satisfaction. Do you want to measure satisfaction? And just with a survey. Personally, I think the first time could be a little higher than that, like maybe a little quiz or some other kind of way to assess whether people actually absorbed anything. But again, keep it simple in analytics.
Yeah, but at the same time, just what we were speaking at with Douglas, a few minutes ago about how do you know it's clear like one of his key challenges is how do we track, for example, microlearning, right? I think not only keeping it simple, but be willing to experiment as well, because it's just like any universe of technology. When you bring different pieces together, they're going to work in certain ways, they're going to talk to each other in certain ways or not. They're going to have certain data that they track or not. And so continue to experiment to get to that data that really is meaningful for you. That's the key thing, right? It's not necessarily collecting data, it's collecting data that's meaningful and helps you to achieve those learning outcomes, right? Help you to move your learners forward. So that's really the key piece.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. And experimentation is always a good thing. Doing crazy things, I'm always up for it, as long as you know what happened afterwards. And then whenever you do something else, either more or less crazy, then you can compare, oh, more crazy is better, or no, wait, that's too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
you, you do need a baseline, or you need a benchmark of whatever you're doing to know that you're actually going somewhere, right? So that's really the message of analytics. It doesn't have to be about dashboards and charts and tables. It's about benchmark and just, I don't know, tracking the path of growth, basically.
100%.
And yeah, that's about it.
Fantastic. I'm excited to see how this becomes the final product, because we're going to be sharing it with everybody who signs up for the design session of the eLearn Success series.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
really open to hear feedback about it, if something could be improved, simplified, and so on. And just we want to make things better. We love what's the word, like criticism.
Constructive criticism. We like feedback. Feedback is a blessing. Feedback is a gift, right?
Absolutely.
That's how we grow. That's how we come together. That's how we have shared understanding, etc. Awesome, man. Ooh.
So yeah, this is the canvas.
All right, just reading. We have a nice another comment from Douglas here about good e-learning versus poor e-learning.
All right.
Douglas, I cannot thank you enough for your engagement today. Super nice. I'm going to continue that conversation with you over on LinkedIn. I hope everybody will follow along, either in this thread or, maybe we'll take it offline somewhere else. But maybe we can bring it over to the community, because I think there's a lot of people who would like to talk about good e-learning versus bad e-learning, micro-learning versus long form. Where do we use these things? Is it compliance? Is it skill building? Is it soft skill building? Those kinds of things. Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Douglas. That's super fantastic. Chris, let's tie this one in a bow.
Sign up for the design session.
Yes. So yeah, we'll tie it in a bow. Again, Chris and I, we both work for a company called Open LMS, but we encourage you to come join us for the design session on February 23rd. Again, tickets are totally free. Just go to eLearnSuccessSeries.com, get your free ticket, get in there, join us. You'll be, welcomed with open arms by not only a couple hundred, but a couple thousand of other people who are passionate about e-learning around the globe. So, you'll be a part of not only a community that is passionate about this topic, but also, like this myriad of perspectives from around the world, which is something I always find really, truly fascinating. And you can just learn so much just by listening to somebody else's story about how they solved a problem. Also, come over and listen to the eLearn podcast. This week we have Dr. Rhonda Beeman, who is really a teacher. It's a fantastic episode. She is super, amazing energy. She also puts a lot of great strategies on the table about how to engage learners and how to just find that, that spark as a teacher or as an instructor to, to bring learners to the table and get them moving. And then finally, just come on over to the community. You can see it down there at the bottom of the screen, elearnsuccessseries.com/community or /connect. And they'll bring you over to the community. Sign up. Again, the community is free. It's not just for Open LMS clients. It is for everyone passionate about e-learning. And we hope to see you there. Thanks so much, Chris.
Absolutely. Thanks to you, Stan.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye, everyone.